Welcome to Beyond the Canopy, a podcast where we explore the most innovative approaches to ecosystem restoration and impact driven investments. I'm your host, Alexander, and today's guest is someone I've known for a long time, I guess more than 11 years. And I'm super excited to welcome Marie-Noëlle Keijzer. She's the CEO of WeForest, which is an organization that has restored over 80,000 hectares, planted more than 100 million trees, and supported and contributed to 100,000 families worldwide. But numbers alone don't explain why WeForest has become a reference point in the restoration space, which is a sector that has struggled with credibility, scandals, and also greenwashing. Marie-Noëlle brings something rare to the space. I would say it's the deep system thinking, also a background that's combined with a very grounded understanding of what it takes to make restoration work. So, especially in fragile and complex context. So, Marie-Noëlle, welcome to Beyond the Canopy.
Thank you, Alexander, for the opportunity.
Yeah,
Delighted to be here today with you.
yeah, likewise. A previous guest on this podcast, Tim Christopherson, who you also know well, joined the corporate space after a long career at the UN. And you did kind of the opposite way. You spent almost 2 decades at executive level in the corporate world, coordinating complex logistics, supply chains across many countries. And then something changed. Um, can you take us back to that moment? What happened?
That's a nice question indeed. I'm sure most of you have seen The Inconvenient Truth from Al Gore, the documentary that came out in 2006, I believe. And that's what made the big change in me. Indeed, I was very happy in the corporate world. I enjoyed myself for 2 decades, as you said. But then when I saw that, I don't need to tell the story of that because I think everybody knows. I realized I had to do something about it. Just it started, being so present, being like a fixation a little bit. So I went back to school actually during my period still in the corporate world. Towards the end, I went to night classes in Brussels
Mhm.
and did a master's in environmental science because I believe you have to have the science and you need to be credible in whatever you do. So that's what I did. And when I graduated, which coincided with the stop of my corporate career, I started looking for something to do. And this is where I met Bill Liao, my co founder,
Mhm.
who actually had already worked with a lot of scientists back in Australia and everywhere in the world on the role of forests for climate and for many other things. And so we came together and we decided to go on this adventure together. He had the vision, he had the contacts, and I had the energy and the time to focus on that and make it the WeForest that we have today.
Yeah, great. And what would you say can the environmental sector learn from the corporate space?
Oh, there's so much. I don't know how many hours we have, but basically, what I bring to the nonprofit sector is the rigor that you have in big multinationals, where processes and tools are very important. Efficiency is important. I think it has to go everywhere, including in the nonprofit, which is sometimes unusual because that's not the focus of the nonprofits very often. But it is for WeForest, and it has been from day one.
Mhm.
Also, that dual experience for me made it quite simple and obvious to go to corporates, knock on the door, and say, can you fund us? And so, because I know their language is important, the way you communicate very clearly, very precisely. So, all of this together made it very obvious that corporates would be our main funders. And that's what they have been for the last 15 years. We have close to 500 corporates that have funded us today.
Wow, that's a big amount. So when you talk about WeForest, so initially WeForest acted more as an intermediary, so just channeling the funding from the corporate side to the global south. But at a certain point, I think you made a strategic decision, if I recall correctly, so that WeForest becomes like a direct implementer or a project developer yourself. Why was this shift especially necessary?
That's also a very good question. Remember, when I started, I just had this vision, I had the idea, and I had no funding, and I had no experience in forestry. I was just, I had a degree, a master's in environmental science. With that, you don't do what we're doing today. So the logical step was to reach out to organizations that were already working in the field and planting trees and restoring landscapes across Africa primarily, and ask them to work for us. And then I would indeed, as you said, be an intermediary with the corporate network that I was in touch with. We did that for a while. I wasn't very happy with the result because I could not control the quality. Like when you have a subcontractor like that, you ask them and then they just do what they do. They don't, they don't follow you blindly because you're not a big funder. So I had very little leverage there and I decided I had to control the quality. I wanted to make every single donation transparent. That was number one for me. So from day one, we went into auditing our accounts, even though they were tiny at the beginning. Imagine the first year we got 35,000 euros. So it was tiny, but still everything is audited. And then also we started working with WeForest to map every single polygon transparently to the
Yeah.
funder. Because
Yeah.
when you work in an organization like ours, the only thing a funder gets is the trust,
Yeah.
is the certainty that you're having an impact and where you're
Yeah.
having an impact.
Yeah.
And that's a hectare that's restored for one funder is not being funded by another one at the same time. That's so obvious that for me it was a no-brainer. We had to do that. So that's where I started to hire people. And the countries that we started developing are still today the biggest focuses that we have in Africa, which is Zambia with the Myombo countries around, and also Ethiopia, obviously, which is the biggest country we have today.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about success metrics, so many organizations still claim success by counting trees planted. You do it also, but you have been very clear that trees alone do not make a forest. Um, so why is counting trees not enough? So I think
Yeah.
WeForest measuring many yeah, like biomass, survival rates, soil
Mhm.
carbon, biodiversity indicators. But why is just counting the trees not enough?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to say that talking about trees, there's nothing wrong with it. Trees are the most incredible creature we know. It does so many good things for the planet, and I can list, I don't need to say it here. I think everybody's who's watching already knows the incredible benefits of planting trees, growing trees, and protecting nature. So there's nothing wrong with that. But the work that we do in the places where we work is so much more complex. So yes, you can summarize it in number of trees, and some brands and companies are happy with that because they want to connect a tree with a product, and so you count the trees.
Okay.
But really, to be fair to the work that we do, you need a lot of other metrics. So like you just
Yeah.
said, we measure the growth of trees, so not just the number of trees, but the growth of trees, the survival rate of the trees. We measure soil, the quality of the soil. We measure the water retention in the soil, the biodiversity changes. Also, the work that we do it with and for the communities. So communities are at the center of what we measure. When we arrive in a landscape, as we call it, that is in a region that we are planning to restore over 10, 15 years, which is the duration of the programs that we start, we first do a baseline of nature and a baseline like how many trees and are there still some seeds there or is it totally barren? We also do a baseline on the people who live there. How many families live there? How many single mothers live there? What's the poverty level of people? Who gets priority in the livelihoods that we do? So all of that is then measured against results and progress to see that we are really making a difference. So the KPIs that we measure are very numerous, and they're the only way to know that what we're doing has a real impact.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also picked out one example of WeForest where basically landscapes are restored without planting trees. For example,
Yep.
in Zambia's Dambos, I think it's not. So many people find this counterintuitive, but yeah, but sometimes it seems that not planting trees can be the best ecological choice, right?
That's also a great question. You see, the best tree is the tree that's been there forever, an ancient tree that you want to protect.
Yeah.
So basically, you would prefer not to have to plant any trees.
Yeah.
We have to plant trees because we have to sequester additional carbon
Yeah.
to reduce the carbon pollution that we
Yeah.
have. We have to restore what we have lost. So we have to plant trees. But ideally, you protect first, then If you have a degraded area, you make sure it doesn't get more degraded and you try to make it regenerate
Yeah.
naturally,
Yeah.
because the species that will grow there, they will be very solid because they
Yeah.
will be totally adapted
Yeah.
and they will sprout naturally. So they will be resistant
Yeah.
to climate change and to the difficult conditions. And the third option, especially when you have no seeds left in the region, that happens in some areas. We see that a lot in Brazil, but we see that everywhere, that the soil is so poor, there are no seeds, then you do need to have active planting.
Yeah.
So there's really a graduation of first protecting, then natural regeneration, and then active planting.
Yeah. And I think also in an interview you mentioned why some ecosystems don't need trees, because afforestation in those areas is not the natural way of the vegetation. So if this is like a grassland ecosystem, it does not make sense to plant
Yeah.
trees, even though they might grow there for a certain period of time, but then they shade out the understory and make the soil prone to water and erosion. So yeah, as you mentioned really in the beginning, it's super important when planning such a project to do a thorough assessment and a baseline study to really see what are the right elements in that place. So I
And
recall
plant
all, yeah,
indigenous trees and plant indigenous
exactly.
trees as
Yeah.
well. It's
And
it's a complex science. Forestry is not just planting a tree.
yeah, and it also includes, I think, the people. So if you plant indigenous trees people don't want or don't use, it in some cases it might also sense, for example, that you plant cinnamon trees or so other fruit trees that provide additional services, which might not be supernatural but help people to get an income and avoid fuel wood or yeah other reasons for deforestation. So yeah.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. Is there's many different ways of doing reforestation. Indeed, you can plant in an area where it's totally degraded. You can also work with the farmers who, in most of the countries where we work, have little plots of land, and that you help regenerate with trees that are directly going to bring them income. That's what we call agroforestry. And so we play with that mosaic, sorry,
Mhm.
of solutions in order to meet the community's needs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the DESA project is also an interesting example where you basically, as I recall correctly, you started with doing restoration, and then a crisis appeared, political crisis appeared. There was a war, and then you had to totally shift your support to the community.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good example, Alexander, of how you have to be committed to the communities to really succeed in this field. If you're just doing this for yourself and then might as well do something else, because it is difficult. And in order to succeed, you need to work with the community. So indeed, let's take that example, the DESA project that we have in the northern part of Tigray, in the northern part of Ethiopia. That project is our flagship project. It is 38,000 hectares
Mhm.
that we are protecting and restoring, but impacting a landscape, so communities around, of around 150,000. So
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
150,000 hectares. And the people who live there, there are 23,000 families. So you can count, multiply by six or something, you got 110,000 people that live there, that live with us, that work with us. So we've been, working on this project village by village during several years. And then all of a sudden, as you said, a war comes, a civil war between the federal government in Ethiopia and the Tigray state. And that lasted for 2 years. The banks were closed, the school were closed, transport, nothing happened. People were just living in autarky. USAID funding, which was very important for these communities because they're
Hold
very,
back.
very poor, went away. So there
Mhm.
was nothing left but us, because our team lives in Mekele, and that's what they do. They work with the community. So actually, they called us and say, guys, we can't plant any trees because nothing's happening, but we need to help these people. They rely on us. And so that was a big question for us, because we don't do humanitarian support. That's not what we do. We're not good at that. Well, we still did. We raised €1 million and also put 300,000 from our savings to buy for every single family that we were working with 50 kilos of wheat and 50 kilos of barley. And those seeds were brought in by truckloads. We had special authorizations. I can see my guys who are normally foresters, like pushing the truck drivers to come in, going through the controls at the border of the state to deliver those seeds on time for the farmers to plant and feed their families for the following year. That's what we achieved. And I can tell you how the community loves our team. Just, but that's what we consider commitment. We do whatever it takes,
Yeah.
basically.
And also if let's say in the restoration space, people speak about permanence. So just in terms, for example, of carbon, that carbon stays in the landscape. They often considering fires or calamities, but I think the biggest, let's say, insurance is the social trust that you can build with the communities in
Yes.
those locations, right?
And indeed, they are the guards are the people from the community. The people work in the nurseries, very often disabled or old people working in the nurseries to grow the seedlings. And then the families participating, benefiting. For example, this in DESA, it's a very interesting project. It's not just about trees and forestry, it's also about retaining water and avoiding erosion, because that is one of the last regions in this Eastern Afro-Montane biodiversity
So,
hotspot, uh, touching the Sahel. It's part of the Great Green Wall because it is becoming a desert.
mm,
So it doesn't rain much, but when it rains a lot. And when it rains a lot, it washes all the topsoil, and then nothing's left for trees to grow or for food to be cultivated in the gardens. So, one of our main target there is to really create check dams in the rivers and dig holes to retain water so the trees can sprout. There's a third of our budget goes into soil preparation and to avoid that also the water reservoirs of those communities get silted with mud and
mm,
then they can't drink anymore.
yeah.
So we also did that. The community asked us to fund big machines to go and clean the big water reservoirs because they didn't have clean water anymore. So that's the kind of commitment you take when you enter such a landscape.
Yeah.
And that's what makes us happy, actually.
Yeah. No, I think that's a super nice example of a really deep partnership, and it also reveals that. So we discussed this tree planting model. So not planting many trees automatically becomes a forest, and the forest becomes a landscape. So there are different components. There's the terrain. There are the people. There are a lot of environmental factors like when does it rain? Does the rain stay in the landscape, or as we have seen in Sri Lanka, just washes down the tea mountains and everything with it. So really, let's say, building this close relationship on a landscape level is, I think, really where I would say that WeForest is also standing out. So
Yeah.
I do not want to go into a rhetoric question, but we I want to spend a few minutes on, let's say, the restoration market we have seen in the past years. Um, yeah, specifically the carbon space, tree planting, double accounting, failed projects, broken promises. So a lot of things have happened, and yeah, harmed also the reputation of the market. But today, WeForest has managed to build a reputation based on trust. Maybe you can explain a little bit what WeForest has done different than maybe other organizations in that space.
I would like to come back on this episode where a lot of critiques have been written on reforestation projects, on carbon projects. In any environment, in any ecosystem, you have rotten apples, you have people that are crooks that come in business to make money. And we see that everywhere. It's not specific to our industry.
Yeah.
So the problem I find is that it got totally taken out of proportion and it inundates the media. Obviously, we see that a lot because we share that in our ecosystem. It hurts a lot because when you see how hard it is for the people to do the work that, for my team to do the work that we do, it's not a ride in the park. It's super hard. You've got, first, you have to raise the money, which is not easy these days. You have to work in environments that are remote. Some of my people take a whole day to get to a project in difficult roads, dangerous roads.
Yeah.
You have the local complexity of the governments. You have yeah, rains and you have droughts and you have difficult situations where there is mortality you can't prevent. So it's super complex to work with nature. I mean, try it out when you plant something in your garden and the plants die. In spite of that, we have amazing results For example, is in Ethiopia, we have a 90% plus survival rate. But never mind. What I want to say is it's very easy to sit back and critique.
Yeah.
And so when these articles came from The Guardian, I think it's so easy to critique. Then come up with a proposal, come up
Yeah.
with an alternative. If you
Yeah.
don't have an alternative, then just be quiet
Yeah.
because that really can upset me. Just I think the world would be better off if people would have some sympathy, some understanding, and try to look for what's good in
Yeah.
what's happening as opposed to what's wrong.
Yeah. It's also an easy excuse, no? So you say, "Oh, this is all carbon cowboys. I don't need to care about it." So,
Yeah, the
and
result is that then it's shrinking, then
yeah,
less commitment, and
yeah,
companies are afraid of. Sometimes they do things, but they don't say it anymore,
yeah,
which is crazy.
yeah,
It's crazy. People should be proud of doing good.
yeah. Yeah, of course, I see big corporates are holding back, no? So in this space, and they also have fears that, yeah, let's say a misstep could lead to reputational damage, for
Mm.
example, if these are big brands, no? So that's, I think, their main
Yeah.
concern there.
You said something before you talked about greenwashing earlier in the discussion. And I want to say something about
Mhm.
greenwashing.
Yeah.
Greenwashing is never what you do. Even if you plant one tree, planting just one tree or funding just one tree, it's never been greenwashing. It's the story you tell about it that it
Okay.
could be
Mhm.
greenwashing. So that's how we advise our partners as well. Say,
Yeah.
don't be afraid of being ambitious, doing things, and then we'll help you communicate powerfully so that you are covered. And if anybody critiques, you are safe because that's our role as well. We've been around for 15 years. We've worked with 500 organizations. We're the biggest Belgian NGO in reforestation. So we know how to support our partners. So I would say there is no greenwashing, except if you lie or if you tell something that is far from reality. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. No, totally agree. So, maybe I try a little bit complicating question. So, I know you speak a lot of languages, and I also learned that you have a environmental science master and and in business administration. So you also speak the language of ecology and business. So you work with a lot of businesses and help them to understand the subject of, let's say, landscape restoration, nature-based solutions. So you help to translate what they can do in that field. And my question is, when you do that, let's say, trying to, let's say, yeah, package nature in metrics, in trees, in families, whatever. So is there also like a risk reducing the real value of nature? So how do you balance
Like,
this,
are,
let's say,
are we
sweet spot?
commoditizing?
Yeah,
Are we
exactly,
commoditizing
exactly.
nature?
That's a better term.
I yeah, I get you, and that's the question I ask myself. I've seen that happening with carbon. I fear that this could be happening with biodiversity.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I think it doesn't do nature a favor, commoditizing these products, and
Yeah.
then you attract people that just come for the money and don't do quality. That's the risk of this. We have one carbon certified project, another one that's potentially going to be carbon certified in order to sustain long-term protection. That's how we use carbon certification. So it's a little bit different than most organizations use. But really, in the relationship with corporates, you say we try to pitch what we do. Actually, we listen to them and listen to what they're trying to achieve. What does every company want to achieve, actually? Is having happy clients, having happy employees. If you demonstrate that you are committed to doing good, that you are acknowledging your employees by involving them in choosing a project that they want to support, for example. And I see many companies in our network have that. Some of the biggest projects and partnerships that we have come from employees who've suggested to their management,
Mhm.
hey, you should work with WeForest. That's
Yeah.
amazing. We have a 12-year, I can name UCB, which is a big pharma in Belgium, 12-year commitment in DESA'A. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And coming from the employees. So that's what every CEO wants to achieve. Your clients, you want them to be happy. Yes, you also want to tick the boxes of the legal reporting, but basically, fundamentally, you want to work in harmony with nature. You want to restore what maybe you have degraded because of your economic activities. And that's the language that I speak to the
Mhm.
corporates that I meet.
Yeah.
I'm not so much into, this whole yeah, carbon and stuff. I'm more like back to basics. And this is how we have developed incredible partnerships that are lasting over 10 years. Like we are with Nike Europe for over 10 years. Brabantia, a
Mhm.
Dutch company that so many of you know,
Yeah.
they have developed something incredible with us. They started uh, planting one tree for every rotary dryer
Yeah.
that they were selling.
Yeah.
It is incredible what it brought to them because first it developed a culture of wanting to do more. And now they are a circular company, cradle to cradle with a neutral, carbon neutral building, like doing incredible things. So from starting small, planting one tree with us for every rotary dryer,
Yeah.
doing very good business, they grew a total different culture.
Yeah.
Also, business-wise, it made a lot of sense. Their business of these dryers was growing 23% year on year,
Yeah.
whereas the market was overwhelmed with Chinese competition.
Wow. Yeah. So
So
it
tell me
really
something better.
contributed to their top line growth. So by
Totally, it grew their
connecting
business
to that project,
23%.
into that story. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and then telling a candid story, just very simple. On the dryer, on the product, you could see the tree, the logo of WeForest, and the story, and just people standing in the store. They saw a cheaper product and they saw one that was doing good. Most people took the one that did good. So
Yeah.
I think we can do that. And then it would be painless. We could restore the planet that we need because we do need to act now. We don't need to just pay lip service to it. We
Yeah.
don't need to just make nice CSR reports.
Yeah.
We need to act. We need to restore the forest that we have degraded.
Yeah.
We're still losing, uh, you know, the equivalent. I have some statistics actually, which I take out of an incredible book that I would like to mention. It's this book, Not the End of the World by Hannah Ritchie. She's a
Yeah.
data scientist in our field, and it's incredible what she explains. Very positive. I think everybody should read that. Basically, if I summarize, between 2010 and 2020, we lost the equivalent of twice the size of Spain in forest. But the good news is that we restored once the size of Spain. So what we're saying is we're losing, but we are recovering. And so that's the work that some of us do.
Yeah.
Plus, also, it's important to know that deforestation, as we have known it in the past, has peaked in the 80s. So now it's still not good. It's still
Yeah.
pretty bad. There's some years that are even worse, like 2024 because of the fires. But basically, we are doing better than we were before. And this is
Yeah.
important. We need to give positive messages to inspire people into action.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. So when you explained you're listening to the corporates, to the employees, what they really want to achieve. So my question is, is this like a mutual process? Because they say, oh, we want to save these sweet panda bears or something like that, but you need the money to build dams in the DESA'A project so that the water's not running off, which is not so sexy than these little sweet animals. So um, ideally unrestricted funding, but realistically, yeah, you have to be creative and do like a core, let's say, educational process and with these organizations to explain them, well, we have to install the dams that the people can make a living there and not cut down the forest, and then finally the sweet
Yeah.
animals will survive. So my question is, how do you form the dialogue, and what kind of information are these corporate clients or customer partners expect in terms of reports, storytelling? So what do they get for it? So when they give you the paycheck, so
Yeah, that's very interesting because, as in nature, diversity works. You don't want corporates to all be the same, and they're not the same.
yeah,
And in nature, it's the same. You need diversity. Every company has something different. If they are active in water or they have a big
yeah,
consumption of water, they
yeah,
might want to look at the water impact. If they are, wanting to say, I want to plant a tree for every employee is something great, or if they're more nature or because of their impact. So every company develops their own culture
yeah,
and what they care about, and the projects that we develop are so holistic
uh-huh,
that everybody can find something. People that
yeah,
care about people and to fight poverty,
yeah,
people that support women empowerment, because WeForest is a women-led, not just at my level, but in the whole
yeah,
organization. We have many women in leading
yeah,
positions, and we focus on women. And as I said before, we prioritize also women with children, single mothers.
yeah,
So basically everybody can find something good in the
Mhm.
project that we do. So that's the wealth, that's the diversity in
Yeah.
action.
Yeah. And maybe we can also say that, let's say, the world of corporates is also a portfolio, like an ecosystem. So with different interests, with different desires, and you help, let's say, yeah, you mentioned up to 500 corporates to make their desires and their fulfillment and doing something meaningful in the world, connecting them to the right places within these project components. Yeah. So that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what excites me in working with corporates is that corporates, as you just said, are an ecosystem by themselves already. They've got suppliers, they've got customers. If and that's something we continue to work on is if all the ones that we directly work with were sharing widely what they do with their own ecosystem, imagine how quickly we would resolve this. This is already, for example, back to Brabantia. That's what they also do. They always talk about WeForest.
Mhm.
They always share that.
Yeah.
They ask their partners to fund us. And that's amazing because that's how you really scale
Yeah.
your impact.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's also interesting how WeForest from the beginning on, yeah, opened the book, opened the maps, and shared what they do with their clients. So we as
Yeah.
Open Forest, we are also super proud to work you as a technology partner for such a long time. And I think together we have built also quite unique system where corporate contributions are not, so you're not talking about it and inviting them to join. You can show each corporate contribution where it is located, down to the project, down to specific location, and you can see it in a satellite time lapse. You have remote sensing data. You have people, the rangers on the ground, who take photos from the trees when you grow back like a wildlife corridor in Brazil. So you can see every few years the trees are growing.
The
Um,
changes.
I think some NGOs would be really scared about this kind of disclosure. Um, but I think in your case, it also changed the way how you could speak about this with funders, right?
I think, Alexander, this has been our strength looking back, the values on which we created our organization, you know, partnership, integrity, courage.
True.
That's what we manage our teams through those values. And that's what transpires in everything that we do. And back to integrity, I think if we don't bring integrity in what we do, well, we might as well go home and do something else. It's just there's nothing without integrity. And so indeed the transparency that you just mentioned is so obvious. Of course, we're going to have open books and everything we do our best. Not everything's perfect, but our ambition is to always get
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's for me it's really a nice philosophy to also take the funders onto like a joint journey and not just selling an impact product to them. So they,
Yeah.
as you also described with Brabantia, that they become part of the journey. They help to transform the project on the ground. And likewise, these ideas, these inspirations they get through the project also transform their own business and make it successful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we don't take many funders to our projects because we feel we're not a travel agency and it would defeat the purpose. Like I know of other organizations that do that as a business model to take their funders to the projects and stuff. It's very nice, it's very friendly, it's fun, but it's not responsible considering the footprint and you fund 10,000 trees and then you go and spend a week or two biking in some countries. I think this is not our model basically. But the few that have gone and visited the projects, they've loved it. They just were, and that's what some funders that are big funders, very credible, that I've worked with many others very often, or in this case in Ethiopia, said they've never seen a project like that. And that gives us, assurance and we feel that we're on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just an anecdote. I had a funny conversation at a conference with the founder of Renature, and they building also agroforestry project, and they got like um, um, a decent funding, let's say 20,000 from a consulting firm, and then the consulting firm asked if they can visit the project, and he said yes, of course, but you have to pay the farmer like 5 to 10,000 euros. And then they asked why we donated to them. Yeah, because it's not a zoo. So
Yeah,
I
that's
like
the
I like
thing.
this approach. It's of course a little bit provocative, but um,
But it has to be proportionate. It needs to have
exactly,
integrity. Back to the,
exactly.
it doesn't have integrity to just spend a few euros and then decide to go there. Indeed, I mean, at least that's not what we do because it just
Yeah,
doesn't fly. Yeah.
yeah. I had one section I quickly want to touch with you. So you're piloting biodiversity credits in Zambia, and I see also there's a lot of hype around this new biodiversity market. And my question to you would be: Are we already ready for these biodiversity credits?
I don't think so. I
Yeah,
mean, we're not really piloting biodiversity credits. I think we are watching what's
mhm,
happening and we need to see. But we know
yeah,
the projects that we do are very rich in biodiversity.
mhm,
Indeed, how do you measure that? Do we
mhm,
need to measure that so that companies that have a biodiversity footprint want to compensate? I haven't spent much time on this. I just, as I
mhm,
said before, I don't want to
yeah,
commoditize forests too much. I
yeah,
think there's many other ways to do that and to be contributing to the projects without having the very complex, lengthy process of certifying. When you look at this, the
yeah,
carbon market has generated so many jobs for consultants, for certifiers, and so much money for them. That's all
yeah,
money that's not going to the projects.
yeah,
So you could argue that they will create more income for the projects. Maybe, maybe not. You are people, organizations are fighting for the same resources, scarce resource that know how to certify.
yeah,
A small NGO doesn't have the bandwidth, doesn't have the funding to do that. So
yeah,
it is already eliminating the smaller ones. It is putting a lot of money into people, that are not really adding value to growing a forest. So I mean, yes, it works to some extent if we're done
of
well, but that's not the one solution, one model fits all. I think again we need to add diversity, and not every project needs to be carbon certified. Not every project needs to be biodiversity certified. It just needs to be corporates and other funders need to know the organization they're working with. They need to trust the organization, and then you don't need any third party verifier to charge and double the price of the project because
yeah,
that's what we're seeing.
yeah.
Carbon certification doubles the price of the project.
Yeah, I think I saw some statistics about carbon credit and how the revenues are split, and so just a small fraction really went to the ground.
Yeah,
Of course, there's a lot of work to be done by the project implementers in terms of all the certification bureaucracy, but the majority then at the end ends up with the carbon brokers or the corporates that make the margin
exactly.
when they
That's a concern. So
yeah
we think we're channeling money to nature. We're not. We're just
yeah
making some consultants richer.
and
Yeah,
creating
honestly.
creating new commodities, yeah, that can be sold in the
That's
financial
the
market.
risk. So we need to go back to basics. That's a little
Yeah,
bit the call for action. Let's just think smart. If as a company you have 100,000, 500,000 money that you think, instead of doing a big event and spending all of that, maybe I can do something good. I can spend that on an NGO that has boots on the ground, that does a real
yeah,
impact with
yeah,
communities that need it. Then, consider that
yeah,
candidly.
yeah. So we're slowly coming to an end, but of course, I reserved some hopefully interesting question. I know you want to scale the impact of WeForest beyond WeForest and become a
Yes.
model that ideally is copied by many other organizations. So, what is your strategy so that comes true? And
Yeah.
what role play in this context, for example, organization like you supporting the Art of Forest, and I think you're a founding member of it, or the 1 Trillion Tree Initiative. So maybe you can give me a take on that. What possibilities you see to scale the restoration space,
Mhm.
maybe with the
Well,
support of corporates.
I think, yeah, that's a nice closing question indeed, Alexander. We forest indeed, our dream is that we will be copied many times because that's what the world needs. It's not about us. We're just facilitating, showing the way. But even if we were growing twice, multiplying our impact by two every year, it wouldn't be enough for the needs of this planet. And we wouldn't be going in all the countries. There are some countries that you could just can't do that. So we're doing our best and we're trying to inspire others. And we're still looking at ways to share our knowledge. And
Yep.
we haven't yet finalized that, but that's something that we have in our mind how to train new people that can copy
Mhm.
us and that can, replicate. The other action that I'm doing a little bit on the side of WeForest is indeed joining other groups like you mentioned, Art of Forest, which is a coalition of, I think, 200 peers that work together, share best practices. I think this is amazing because that's very rare in an industry that the people come together. And the other one is the one T.org from World Economic Forum, where a lot of corporates are pledging forests, which I think is important. I'm also working with scientists on pitching the science because I think the main thing is we need to stop talking to ourselves. All of us, we keep talking to ourselves all the time. And we love talking to ourselves, but it doesn't make any difference. So eventually, we need to come out of the woods and speak to people so people hear us and people act because
Yeah.
it's all the people on the street, it's all the companies that are not yet engaged that need to join us, and all the government they need to
Yeah.
support us, and the philanthropists. And
Yeah.
so that's something that I'm driving as well with some interesting focus on the water cycle, which is
Mm.
something we were talking a lot about the carbon, but we
Yep.
need to talk about the water because when you think about it, all of us, we're directly impacted in our daily life by
Yeah.
water.
Yeah.
Water for drinking, water for quality water, for enough rain, for not too much rain. All of that can be regulated by nature.
Yeah.
And we're forgetting that. And we need to put nature in the center so
Yeah.
that we can, choose our future. What is the future that we want for our children?
Yeah. Yeah. So in this sense, so what gives you hope, and how how can you give hope and advise young generations? So what and where shall they start?
Yeah. Sometimes people ask me whether I'm optimistic or pessimistic, for example, which is connected to your question. And I don't ask that question very much. I'm just acting. I feel like taking action is the best remedy against despair when you see that we are damaging our
Mm.
planet. On the other hand, we can turn that around. We can transform that, and it's actually fun to do, and it's incredible because I must say I feel privileged to work with organizations that are all committed to a better world because then you really speak and exchange with people at a different level in a very positive way. So that gives me hope. That gives me a lot of energy, and the same for my team. So focusing on something good, whatever it is, because the world needs forests, but the world needs a lot of other good things. And so I think all of us to reflect, to be committed, and to support in good causes. I think
Yeah.
that's the way forward,
Yeah.
whatever the good cause is, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you explained, it's more fun, it's more fulfilling and rewarding at the same time. So imagine working at a corporate your entire life, optimizing supply chains to make the shareholders richer, or optimizing for impact, for a better, more equal world. So I think that's, yeah, it's something that
I wanna
that I certainly
Yeah,
would agree to. Yeah.
yeah. I just wanna share something that happened in September with one of the big corporates that supports us. They created a climate week, and they invited different speakers during every day during the whole week, and WeForest was the last one on that Friday, and there was a huge attendance, and the employees just love it. And I think that's also important, right? To give the employees an opportunity because you said, sometimes you're in a job and it's very routine and stuff. Well, you can bring some light
Yeah.
into people's lives by connecting them back to nature and to causes that matter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is there anything you want to let our listeners know?
No, I just wanted to thank you for organizing this discussion and for sharing it because indeed it doesn't make a difference if we do great things and we don't let people know.
Yeah. We're going to share this broadly, hopefully. So, Marie-Noëlle Keijzer, thank you very much for your leadership, your clarity for proving that restoration at scale is possible when it's built on science, systems, and trust. And to our listeners, quality restoration isn't about planting many trees, it's about staying, measuring, learning, being accountable, and doing it again. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Canopy. Have a great day.
Thank you.